Hello students! In this video I'm going to show you how you can detect whether or not your mouse is inside a rectangle instead of inside a circle. Because it's actually different, because if you think about the mathematics of the situation, it's going to be different. Let's start with what we have already from last time. Last time I showed you how you can detect whether or not your mouse is inside the circle. And the idea was, at all times I'm going to measure the distance from the center of the circle to my mouse, and I'm going to test, is that distance larger than the radius of the circle, or is it smaller than the radius of the circle? And if it's smaller, then I'm inside. So here's what that code looks like. Here I am. Here's the draw method. Here I am underneath the draw method. I've written a distance method that takes a pair of xy coordinates and another pair of xy coordinates. It returns the distance between this point and this point. And then here inside draw, I'm using the distance formula to tell me the distance between where I'm drawing the center of the ellipse, xy, and the xy coordinates of the mouse. And then I'm testing if that distance is smaller than 30. Take a quick note. My ellipse is 60 by 60. And so this is giving you the complete height and the complete width of the ellipse. So if I'm testing if it's smaller than the radius, I need to do whatever this is divided by 2. If I had variables here, w and h, you would need to test if the distance was less than w divided by 2, because that would be half the width. All right. So let's change this to be a rectangle. So now I've got this rectangle, and as you notice, it's kind of inconsistent. Here it thinks that I'm inside, and here it thinks that I'm outside, even though I'm not. What's happening here is, when this was an ellipse, xy is giving you the center of the ellipse. So it makes sense to say, is my distance from the center small enough to be inside? Now when I draw a rectangle, xy is the upper left-hand corner of the rectangle. So really I'm measuring how close am I to the upper left-hand corner. And that makes sense. You see when I get really close to the upper left-hand corner, it turns green, and then when I'm a little farther, it turns red. Well, that doesn't really make much sense for what I want to do. So we're going to have a completely new approach. Instead of doing this, I'm going to test 4 things. Is my mouse to the right of the left side of the rectangle? Is my mouse to the left of the right side of the rectangle? Is my mouse below the top of the rectangle? And is my mouse above the bottom of the rectangle? If you think about what this looks like, here's my rectangle. I know the upper left-hand corner is at the coordinate xy. Let's say it's still 60 wide and 60 tall. I want to know, what is the x-coordinate of this right-hand side? Well, x takes me all the way to here, and then I'm adding another 60. So this x-coordinate must be x plus 60. This y-coordinate at the top is just y. But then to get to the bottom, I have to add another 60. So the y-coordinate down here is y plus 60. So the coordinates you want to ask about, you want to say, is the mouse to the right-hand side of this wall? Is it to the left-hand side of this wall? Is it below the top wall? And is it above the bottom wall? And if it's in all 4 of those regions at once, it must be inside. If it's not in all those regions at once, it's going to be off one of these other sides. So that's our plan. We're going to have 4 if statements to test, am I on the correct side of each of the 4 walls in order to be on the inside. So I'll say, if my mouse's x-coordinate is larger than the left side of the rectangle, which is at x, and is my mouse's x-coordinate smaller than the right side of the rectangle, which is x plus 60, and is my mouse's y-coordinate larger than the top of the rectangle, which is y. And I'm saying larger than here because if you remember about processing, the larger the y-coordinates, the further down you are. So if I'm saying, is my mouse larger than the y value, I'm saying, is my mouse below the top side of the rectangle? And is my mouse's y smaller than the bottom of the rectangle, which is y plus 60. So now I'm asking all 4 questions. Is my mouse inside each of the 4 walls? And if the answer is yes, that's my test for am I inside the whole rectangle. So if this is true, I'm going to fill my rectangle with a new color that is 255, 0, which is green. Otherwise, I'm going to fill it with a red color. Alright, there we go. So now when I'm inside, you see it's correctly detecting for the rectangle. The point here is, depending on what type of shape you have, you just have to think really clearly about what would be a mathematical test to determine is some set of xy coordinates inside or outside the shape you care about. And I've just shown you 2 different simple tests, but if you had a different shape, you would probably have to make up your own tests for whatever shape you had. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this. I will see you next time.